everyone, it's Nicole. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you some of my troubled orchids. So these orchids I've been having a lot of trouble with in the last couple of months. So over here we've got my Tolumnia mitzi. This one's in a mesh pot. I've got a wick on there, which I don't use, and I usually don't keep water in the reservoir. I know that Tolumnia orchids like to dry out. That said, I've had a mealybug infestation with this orchid. It's been throwing out new roots, so I've been basically battling mealybugs for the last few months. I repotted it, I sprayed it down. It's thrown down new roots, as you could see here, within the mesh pot. Again, I water it. I don't keep water in the reservoir. I just know it needs a lot of air, but I have to change something. So something I'm thinking of is I could possibly pot it up in these wine corks, like just cut off the part that had wine touching it so there's no acidity there, and then possibly potting it up within these wine corks in a mesh pot. That's one idea. Another idea that I'm thinking of is just putting it in sphagnum moss in a very airy mesh pot like this one, but then that's sort of, I feel like leca is airy if I don't have it in a decorative container, but maybe I get rid of the decorative container. So I'm just trying to think of ideas here. Like maybe this decorative container is suffocating the roots. I'm still confused as to whether the struggle is mostly the mealybug or mostly not getting air. But first things first, I'm going to take off this wick here. Probably doesn't need any more moisture anyway. I'm just going to get rid of that. And maybe what I do here is just put it on a saucer. I'm just really encouraged by the root growth. I think that by leaving it outside of the decorative container, it'll get more air to the roots to begin with, and it might be happy. It's got 2 new growths, but I think this is good. Let's see what happens with this setup. Now moving on to the Ascofinetia Cherry Blossom. So this orchid I'm struggling a lot with. In the past 2 weeks, it's dropped 4 leaves. So I think this orchid I potted up in September. As you can see, the roots here are desiccating. So it doesn't have a root system that went down into the medium. Someone has warned me about this. I think it was you, Michael McCarthy. You mentioned that these don't like an always moist system. And yeah, I think the proof is in the pudding. When I lost those 4 leaves, I knew that I had to get rid of the semi-hydro self-watering setup that I currently have because it's not working. So I need to do something else. So I'm thinking I would love to keep it in leca, but this one is struggling hardcore. I don't think it's strong enough to stay within this setup. So I'm going to do something else. Like, look at this right here. It's got 4 roots that have desiccated. Like, this is terrible. It's got a long stalk. It just doesn't look great. I'm gonna have to try something else. That's so gross. Like that, no. Like we're gonna have to we're gonna have to do something else. So when I repotted it, it had a stalk which was super long that I cut. I actually put wax in it, and that wax is still there. It's not squishy, the stalk, so I don't think it's stem rot there. So it just looks like gross. But I think what I'm gonna do is, just because it's lost some of these leaves, I think we're gonna have to put this in a much airier setup. It's been months. I can't let it go any longer. So I'm gonna put it in a mesh pot, and I'm thinking that it's gonna get a lot of aeration within the mesh pot, and I'm actually gonna put it in sphagnum moss. I think the leca is just too harsh for this orchid, and I want to make sure that I'm setting it up for success. It's already super set back, in my opinion. It's lost 4 leaves in the last 2 weeks. That's telling me that what I'm doing isn't working. I'm not opposed to organic media at all. In fact, I'm transitioning a lot of orchids to semi-hydro because it makes my life easier with watering the collection, but I've got my catasetums in sphagnum moss. I've got a lot of cattleyas in organic media right now. And I think at this point, we just need to do what's best for this orchid. And I think the sphagnum moss will be able to dry out quickly within this mesh pot. I'm not going to be overwatering this, but I think that these roots need something a little bit less harsh than the leca beads right now. So my hope is that by filling this up with sphagnum moss, we'll be able to rehab this orchid a little bit better than throwing it in an airy leca setup. And since it barely has any roots, we're going to have to stake this up so it doesn't move. So I'm going to try to disturb this orchid as little as possible when I'm moving it. So I don't know. This is going to take a while. I think this is going to take a while to be rehabbed. If you guys have seen any setback on an Ascofinetia orchid like this, let me know down in the comments how long it took for you guys to recover it. I think it's going to take me at least a year. We'll see if it gets any new leaves. We'll see if that existing leaf is going to continue to grow. It's always nice when you see a new leaf exceed an older leaf. I always think that that's a recipe for success and you know you're doing things well. But in this case, we're going to be super, super set back. But I think this setup is going to be better for this Ascofinetia. It's going to have a wet-dry cycle. It's going to have much more air to the roots, despite this being a little bit of a moist system. But I think those roots need to be babied a little bit, and I am not going to put it in a basket right now. I don't want to bare root this orchid. I do need the flexibility of having some sort of media in the pot that will hold on to the moisture. So we shall see how this setup does for the Ascofinetia Cherry Blossom, and we'll see how this setup does for the Tolumnia. Now, again, I don't know if this Tolumnia is just ridiculously set back because of the mealy bugs, but I do see new roots that have gone down into the leca, which is why I'm keeping the leca set up. And I think I just suffocated this Ascofinetia Cherry Blossom with too much love. In some cases, they say that the transition takes some months, but I repotted this when I got my Oncidium Twinkles back in October. This isn't working, and we're not going to keep pushing. I'll keep you posted on how all of this does. And thank you guys so much for watching. Take care, everyone. Bye.